if I can shine through the week. I don't know where I'm going to put this thing up. I may put it up on Squirrel World X. But I just want to talk about things, about the whole, community thing and everything else. I think that there are people who want to just talk. Because I think, it's kind of like, if you're a person who does things, and I think that there are people who, I don't even know how to put it, but I'm going to say it the best I can. I think there are people who are doers and there are people who just want to talk about stuff. They just want to talk about the problems. They want to talk about everything that's going on in the world and talk and talk and talk and talk. And the more we talk about it, the more we analyze. It's like I'm a kind of person who, I should be a talker and an analyzer as much as I read philosophy and look at things. And I get to thinking about the great thinkers like David Hume. But I get to thinking, you know what? It doesn't take a lot of thinking to reach a lot of conclusions. It doesn't even take a lot of experiments and a whole bunch of other things. I think that there is like a body of knowledge in a sense, just like, like encyclopedia kind of knowledge. And that takes a team to create that. But I think just to be a good thinker is something you have to do as an individual and to be good at doing things. And a lot of stuff, you really do have to have experience. And you have to have personal knowledge because, I don't even know any other way to put that, but there's a personal way of knowing things, that you know stuff. Because you've done it. I don't discount the individual, which I think most people tend to do nowadays in our world of being objective, because we learn to reject the subjective. We learn to reject our own thoughts and our own ideals, and I think Emerson kind of warned us about that. Gave us a lot of advice about that. We learn to reject our own thinking and to discount our own thinking, as he said, precisely because it is our own, because it's ours. We look for the other people. We look for the great poets and the great scientists and the great people that we admire, but we discount our own thoughts as of being of no value. And then later on, we see somebody else say the very words that we were thinking, and just like he said, it comes back to haunt us, and it does. You got to believe that from you can come great ideals. From you can come great thoughts. And that's the truth. You can have great thoughts. Somewhere in your mind is the solution to great problems. You have that within you, and you got to believe it. And how do you get there? How do you get to that point where you believe that within you are the great solutions? You got to believe it. I mean, I'm one of the people who believe that you have to believe. Now, this could get us into that case of what I was talking about a little while ago, overbelief. Although I wasn't talking about a little while ago here, but, I was talking off camera about overbelieving and believing too much in believing. Because I guess it's not really so much overbelief or believing too much in believing as it is when you just believe things and that's all you do. There's two things that people do too much of, where they do this to the exclusion of all other things. They believe things and they talk about things. And the little subdivision of that is analyzing everything. Analyzing everything to death. And the other part is being a critic of everything. But it all comes under that same heading of believing things to the nth degree and believing and believing and believing, but never doing anything. And then talking about things and never doing anything. I mean, we got YouTube. We got people talking and talking and talking. But we don't have people doing things. Get up and do something. Get up and try something. No, we sit around and we criticize other people for what they're doing or what they're not doing or what they're failing to do. We criticize. We become critics. We become judges of others. Instead of getting up. See, as an individual, you got to look at yourself and say, what am I doing to make things better? See, it's just like what I talked about when I was in my other job. That's the thing I kept thinking about. What am I doing to make things, what can I do? And from the first day I came to that office, like I was working at this place, okay, in the admissions. I'm just going to say I was working in admissions at the university. Up in the mailroom, opening the mail, And then they sent me downstairs because I basically didn't kiss the supervisor's ass in that situation. Because I didn't kiss her ass and worship her, I actually got sent downstairs. You know, and there were other people who wanted me to worship them. Because that's what they do. That's their job, is to be worshipped. You know, they get a degree, they paid money, and you are supposed to worship them. And I didn't worship them. And for that, I became, cast off to the side and everything else. But I also became a hero because I stood up to these people who wanted to be worshipped. And I said, no, you're not better than me. You're not better than me. I did my job and I did what I'm supposed to do. And that's what I do. Now you all do your job. You have a job to do. And your job basically is to serve us. To help us to serve the students. But you're not doing it. You're not doing that. You want to be worshipped. It reminded me of one of my coworkers who, was jealous of the attention I was getting because basically I was helping my coworkers. He wanted to be worshipped. That's everybody. It's almost like a disease. It's like a mind virus. This, it is a meme. It's one of these memes. It's this mind virus of your job is to be worshipped. That's what you do. You're there for people to worship you and to serve you and to give you things and to praise you. But let's get real. You don't do anything. If somebody worships you, if they really were going to worship you, and if worship were a worthy thing, they would do it because you actually did something good for them. But you don't. You just blow smoke and bullshit people and make it seem like you're doing something for other people. When I was in that job, I did things. I didn't care about getting worship. I don't want people worshiping me. I'm no better than anybody else. But I'm doing things. I did things to make things better in that office. I did things to make things a lot better in the unit I was working in. And people responded to that. They responded to the love and the kindness and the dignity that I showed them, the respect I gave people. That I carried myself in a very professional manner. And there are people who just couldn't tolerate that. They got upset because, I was raising the bar, so to speak, and they could never reach what I'm doing because they can't focus on giving to other people. If you don't have that in your heart, it's hard. It's very difficult, isn't it? If you just don't have it in your heart to do your job, to help other people, to give things to people. You got to be, you have to be a person who really is fulfilled already. And you have that sense of fulfillment. And you're just doing, I can do my work. I can focus on doing my job. That's the one thing about me when I was working that job. I could sit down and I could do my job. I could do my work. I didn't need to be worshipped. The less I needed to be worshipped, the less I needed people to pay attention to me, the more people did pay attention. Because people knew I was dependable. I was the kind of person who, when you needed something, I was there for you. When you need something, I'm serving you. When you need something, I'm the kind of person you can call on. You can depend on me. But you have these other people whose job it is, in their minds, to be worshipped. They're there for everybody to adore them. In other words, they're kind of like God. What is God's job? What does God do? He just sits there and he's worshipped. He created this great universe and now we're supposed to just go, we're not worthy. Here's the thing. Forget about whether there is a God or not. It's the concept of God. What is God? God is a person or a thing or a whatever entity who is worshipped because of the good things he's done. Because he's done such a wonderful thing of creating such a wonderful world with wonderful things in it. Now, we're not going to nitpick over every other little thing that everybody wants to argue about, but that's what the concept of God is. Well, there are people who take on that. I should be worshipped because I've done so. But people tend to overinflate what they've done. They tend to think that they've done a greater thing than they really have done. They tend to think that they've done greater than what they've done. Look, I'm a doer, And I do things. And I think I do great things. But I also put it in perspective. What I do is no better than what anybody else do. But of course I'm going to think highly of myself. But I know there's a difference between what I think and what's reality. Reality is I'm just another grain of sand on the beach. And that is one of my catchphrases. I say that all the time. But it's the truth. I'm just another grain of sand on the beach. I'm just no better than anybody else. And that's the truth. But I recognize that fact. I'm aware of that fact. I know that to be true. So I look at things for what they are. I don't sit there and think my job is to be worshipped. Or that if people don't worship me, they're failing. They're failures because they fail to recognize what a wonderful person I am. In a certain way, this is kind of how God is. At least the ideal I get that God is like that. That God gets upset if you fail to worship him. If you fail to recognize what a wonderful person he is. You have to, your failure to recognize his wonderfulness is a sin. That's the ultimate sin. The sin of not recognizing how wonderful he is. And I see so many people act that way. Like certain bosses, your failure to recognize what a wonderful, fantastic, great person they are is a sin. And they will punish you in some way. Sometimes officially, sometimes unofficially. In other times, like in my job, people were just making up stuff. There are people who got pissed off. And basically the rules didn't allow them to do things, so they had to make up stuff. Or they play favorites. Who do you love? You love the people who love you back, right? It makes me think about something. Like in my job, the supervisor. Who did she love the most? The person who loved her right back. Another one of my coworkers who loved her right back. Who worshipped her. Who practically did worship her. And of course, that she just could only see that person. Anything I did was nothing. Why? Even if I did a great job, even if I did the work that I'm supposed to do, the work I get paid for, no, that's not recognized. Because I'm failing to do what's necessary in that room. In that office, you are here to worship me. That's the thought on this woman's mind. You are here to worship me. And if you don't do that, you're a failure. You are a failure if you fail to worship me. And I see a lot of this even on YouTube. There are people who, you must worship me. You must recognize, what a valuable person I am. Like I think of one particular YouTuber whose name I won't mention, who always makes videos and gets a zillion and one thumbs up and gets thousands of views each video. And probably is making like tons of money. And the thing is that anybody who disagrees with her, she blocks them. She'll cut them off. She'll block them. I'm going to block that person. I'm going to block this person. It's like, yeah, because it all really revolves around that person's ego. Your sense of your great importance. I am so important, and people must recognize my importance. They must recognize the importance of what I do, and what I do is so important. But in reality, you know what it is? It's not important. People don't need you. Just like people don't need me. If I get run over by a truck, the world still keeps going. I have no illusions. Yes, I think highly of myself, but I'm not delusional. I don't think the world will stop functioning if I'm not here. If I'm not here, people will adjust and they will do whatever they're going to do, and that's it. The world is not going to just stop functioning. That's the truth. And if you don't recognize that, you need help, and that's the truth.